Hello everyone! I hope you guys are doing very well. Today I want to tell you about my top 5 favorite modern authors, and I was really excited to make this list, and I'm very excited to tell you guys about these authors. They are all so wonderful, quite different, and they all have their own charm. And I know I talk a lot about classics, but I also really love literary fiction, and all of these authors are modern literary fiction authors that every time they come out with a new book, I get extremely excited and I automatically buy the book no matter what it's about. Just the fact that the author released a new book, I will automatically buy the newest one. I am so confident in this list and these authors, and I'm very excited to tell you about them and to hopefully have you be interested in reading their books, because I would love to hear what you guys think about these authors. So let me know if you have read any of their books or what your top 5 favorite authors are that you will always buy new releases from. I would really be interested to hear that. The first author has been a favorite of mine since I was a child, so we're gonna go in chronological order a bit. And I have been reading her books since I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. And she is still one of my favorite authors to this day. If you have been watching my videos for any length of time, I think you'll already know who this author is, and that is Kate DiCamillo. So I have a selection of her books here. These are just a few of the ones that I've read. I think I've read almost every single middle grade novel that she has written, if not every single middle grade novel she has written. I'm pretty sure I've read every single one. The first one that I read by her is Because of Winn-Dixie. I'm not going to tell you guys the synopsis of every novel because I really want to highlight the author rather than the individual novels. But I started with Because of Winn-Dixie. Another favorite is this one, The Tale of Despereaux, and another favorite that I don't have in this little stack is The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. And then we also have some of her other books are The Tiger Rising, which is one of my favorites. And then these are her 2 most modern books that when I saw them in the bookstore this past year, I was jumping for joy because the 8-year-old in me will always get excited, and the 25-year-old in me will always get excited when she releases a new book. So this one is her second most recent, and that is The Puppets of Spellhorst. It has more of a historical fiction feel, and this one is Ferris, which has a bit more of a modern feel. I read Ferris a couple weeks ago, and then I read The Puppets of Spellhorst in the winter, this past winter. Loved them both. Kate DiCamillo never ceases to write stories that just pull at my heartstrings that I absolutely adore. She is kind of like the epitome of middle grade literature for me. Middle grade can be very unassuming because they're stories for a younger audience, but I feel like because they are stories for a younger audience, they have the greatest impact on children as readers. They can make you into the reader that you become later in life. And what I love about Kate DiCamillo's stories is although their concepts and the story as a whole can seem very, I don't know if unassuming is the right word, but that's the one that's coming to mind. These stories are so much more than what they're actually about. They are so much deeper and heartfelt and profound than how they seem from an outside perspective just reading the synopsis. The way that she makes you feel is unlike any other middle grade writer I have experienced or have read from, and she's just such a lovely person. I have watched countless of her interviews. So many of them are on YouTube and Spotify, and I love listening to her speak because the way that she speaks about literature makes me love her as a person, not only as an author. The way that she sees literature's impact on young readers, and she's just such a lovely, fun, wonderful person. At least that's how she seems. I'm sure she is that way because she seems so genuine, and her stories are just profound and deep, and they will make you laugh and cry, and they are just hugs. Her books are just hugs. And even if you're not a middle grade reader, I can't recommend her books enough to you, especially to the people that have never read her before or maybe only read her as a child. I think you will love her books. I think The Tale of Despereaux and The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, if you're an adult that has never read Kate DiCamillo before, those 2 are incredible, but all of her books really are. So Yes, I feel like I could talk about her for ages. I could make a whole video about DiCamillo and her impact on me as a reader from when I was a child, and there's just not enough wonderful things to say about her and her stories. They are incredible. They never disappoint. She and her stories just mean the world to me and have meant the world to me since I was a little girl, and I will forever be grateful for her for making me the reader that I am today. Moving on to the next author, this one I discovered a few years ago, and I read one book by him and I liked it, but I didn't love it, so I never continued on. And then I wanted to read another book by him and see if I would like that one a little bit more. It became one of my all-time favorite books, and then I bought a whole entire collection of his books and I'm going through them, and he is now one of my all-time favorite writers, and again, every time he releases a new book, I will immediately buy it and immediately read it. And that is Kazuo Ishiguro. So the first book that I read that I didn't completely love was The Buried Giant. Now, I don't know if it's because I listened to the audiobook of this and maybe I would enjoy it more if I physically read it, plus it was a few years ago, so my taste has changed. But I would really like to reread The Buried Giant. Like I said, I bought his whole collection of books. I love these so much. They're so beautiful. They are the Faber and Faber editions. And yes, so I would really like to reread The Buried Giant at some point. But then the book that I read after this one that became an all-time favorite is, of course, Never Let Me Go. This book has had, oh my god, such an effect on me. I feel like not a day goes by where it's not like lurking in the back of my brain and the back or the depths of my heart. I love this book so much. If you haven't read it, cannot recommend it enough. The movie is also, oh my gosh, it will just make you sob. This is the book that probably has made me cry the most or the hardest. Like, I was truly weeping and sobbing, and it was just amazing. I love when books make me cry and make me feel deeply, so this is one of my favorite books. I have also read The Remains of the Day, which is another iconic book that he is most known for. Again, it's also fantastic. I feel like something with Kazuo Ishiguro, all of his books kind of have a different vibe and a different tone, and I think that that's really interesting, and I think that that's what I love about his books, because they all feel quite different and I never know what to expect. And then his most recent book is Clara and the Sun. This is still his most recent book, I believe. I got this edition when I was in Canada visiting Emma, and this is again this is actually vintage Canada, but the Canadian publishing industry usually has the UK covers. Sometimes they have US, but this is the UK edition. Clara and the Sun, like I said, he came out with this book. I immediately had to buy it and immediately had to read it. This one is also extremely different from these. Although they do touch on similar themes that I feel like you could find connections between them. Kazuo Ishiguro has a way with making you feel very, very deeply. I'm just so excited every time he releases a new book, and I can't wait to keep reading his other books. I don't know, yeah, you can see them. I have the unread ones back here. I would really like to read A Pale View of Hills at some point this summer, maybe into the fall or the autumn. But yes, his stories are just always unexpected and affecting, and cannot recommend his books enough, especially Never Let Me Go. If I had to recommend one book to you by Ishiguro, it would be Never Let Me Go. The next author is another favorite that I never stop talking about because he has been a favorite of mine for years and is still a favorite of mine. He seems like such a wonderful person as well. I follow him on Instagram. He writes the funniest captions. Every time I listen to him speak for interviews, he's so honest and blunt and funny, and it's again like DiCamillo. I not only appreciate them as writers, but I appreciate them as human beings. Like, I feel like they are making a very profound impact on literature, not only by creating and writing such wonderful books and stories, but just by existing and being part of the literary industry and narrative. And that is Fredrik Backman. He is a Swedish novelist, and I've only read him in English. His books are translated so beautifully. In particular, the Beartown series is translated by Neil Smith, and Beartown is one of my favorite books of his, as well as A Man Called Uwe. Beartown is a trilogy. Uwe is a standalone novel. I first read Uwe when I was still working at Barnes & Noble quite a few years ago, and I absolutely fell in love with this novel, and it made me want to read everything by Fredrik Backman. And then I found his interviews and I started listening to him speak, and he is such a funny person. He's like genuinely hilarious. So after reading A Man Called Uwe, I read the Beartown series, this is the first book, Beartown, and then I loved it so much that I bought a mass market paperback in Swedish. Do I speak Swedish? No. Can I read Swedish? No. Did I just want it to have the Swedish version of one of my favorite books? Yes. I just thought it was so cool to have one of my favorite books in its original language. I would love to be able to read this. I'm currently trying to learn Italian. I have been in the process of trying to learn French. I would love to be able to speak and read Swedish just to read Fredrik Backman. I feel like that's a sure sign that you love a writer, is they make you want to learn the language so you can read the original text. That is the case with Fredrik Backman for me. And seeing that original text in the original Swedish, I just think it is such a cool thing to have a book in its original language when it's translated into English. I also love his writing so much that I bought his nonfiction parenting book. It is called Things My Son Needs to Know About the World, and this is a nonfiction found in the parenting section. Basically, it's just a collection of essays and little snippets of thoughts and notes. It kind of feels like you're looking into his notes app as he writes down little things that he learns or thinks about as he is, becoming a parent and experiencing parenthood for the first time. And these are just the cutest, sweetest little snippets of fatherhood, parenthood, and having a child. And I loved it. I read this years ago, and I still think fondly about it. There's one of them that is my absolute favorite. Let's see if I can find it. So this isn't the one I was referring to, but it's just so funny. So the title is Yes, Yes, Childhood Trauma This, Childhood Trauma That. And he writes, I drew one small butcher's chart on the picture on the front of the packet of animal crackers, and suddenly I'm referred to my first, middle, and last names. I think that's a bit much. I just think he just has such a funny way of writing and talking about heavy topics. That's something that, he captures every single emotion that you can experience in his books. He will make you cry, laugh, yell. Every emotion you could feel in a book, you will feel when you read Fredrik Backman. This is another one that I love. It says, Note to self. The nurses really don't like it when you use the word house train in relation to children. Okay, this is the one that I was trying to look for. It says, this parenthood thing doesn't come with instructions. That's all I'm saying. You spit on the napkin, then you wipe the child's face with the napkin. You don't spit straight onto the child. My bad. I just think he's so great. So anyway, I love this book so much, and he usually writes fiction. This is his only nonfiction, I believe. He also has written a few short novellas. My favorite is And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. All of his books are just like warm hugs, and also just always have a little box of tissues because you're either going to need them for your tears of joy or laughter or tears of sorrow. And I love that when an author can make you laugh and cry in the same book and on the same page even sometimes. So, adore his books so much, and again, cannot recommend enough. I would really recommend starting with A Man Called Uwe, but I also love Beartown. If you're in the mood for something a bit shorter, maybe And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. I only have one book of his that I have yet to read, and that is Britt Marie Was Here. But I don't want to read it because then I won't have anything left of his to read until he writes something new. I think that's a good problem to have, is to not want to read a book because you're sad that you won't have any more from that author. I think that's proof that they are an absolute favorite. My next favorite author is a fan favorite. A lot of people love her books, and for good reason, and that is Sally Rooney. She is a fantastic Irish novelist. The first book I read from her was Normal People. This is my favorite of her books. And then I read Conversations with Friends. This is her first book. And then I read this short story, which Faber and Faber published in these wonderful editions. They're called the Faber Stories, and this is Mr. Salary. And then I read Beautiful World, Where Are You?, which is her most recent release, but she's actually coming out with another book soon called Intermezzo, and I am so excited to read it. People are already reading it, and I am so jealous of the people that got advanced copies. Faber, if you're watching this, all of her books feel so honest and true, and her portrayal of coming of age, being a young adult, being an adult, all of her books have so much honesty in them, and I feel like they're fantastic portrayals of the human existence and human emotions, and just the way that we cope with different things that we experience as we go through life. And her books, again, feel very singular to her. She has a very specific writing style. Most of her books, if not all of them, don't use quotation marks, which at first was a little jarring in Normal People, and then I really got used to it, and I felt like it kind of blurred author from character, and it really created a very interesting reading experience. I want to talk about Normal People specifically because it is my favorite and it's the first that I read from her. Just the way that she wrote about the connection between these characters, the connection that she created using just words on a page, and how she made me feel for them, and how she made me feel everything that they were going through. Everything that was described felt like it was actually happening. Like the characters didn't feel fictional, they felt so real, and that's what she does with all of her books and all of her writing. It just feels so authentic and honest and true, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So again, she is another author that I will read absolutely everything that she comes out with, that she publishes. With Sally Rooney, I think you can kind of expect what her book's vibe is going to be like, and they're a bit similar, although they're very different stories. There's just some kind of similarity within like the themes and the writing style, as opposed to DiCamillo and Kazuo Ishiguro. Their books can have very different tones and feelings and vibes and voices and storylines, and I feel like Sally Rooney, you sort of know what to expect going into her books, although the stories themselves are different. I hope that makes sense. But that's what I love about her, because I love Normal People. I love how she talks about human relationships, how she talks about human emotions, and that's what I think she does best, and that's what I want as a reader from her. Although I would love something entirely different, because I would love to see how she does something differently. I love what she already does, if that makes any sense. So yes, that is Sally Rooney. Cannot wait to read Intermezzo. I am so excited. The last author I want to tell you guys about is also Irish, and she is my new to me favorite author. That is Claire Keegan. If you've been here recently, I can't get enough of Claire Keegan, and I keep telling you about her because I love her books so much. The first one that I read from her was Small Things Like These. I picked up this book when I was in Canada visiting Emma. This made me fall in love with her writing. Small Things Like These and Foster are two standalone novels. And then Antarctica and So Late in the Day are her two short story collections that I have read. I really like her short stories, although I don't like them as much as I adore these two novels with all of my heart and soul. The way that she talks about life in Ireland, like her books feel so Irish, and I love it. I love it so much. They are both incredibly quiet, but incredibly profound. After I finished both of these books, I knew that they would never leave me. Again, like these ones. The way that she writes short novels that don't take you very long to read. Just the way that she can create such an impact in such a small amount of words is incredibly inspiring and amazing to experience, and I just love these books so much. So highly, highly recommend. Her short stories, I have mixed feelings about these two collections. There are some stories in here that I liked, some that I didn't love. These two are my favorite. Please read them. I am so excited for her to write more books. I also love this design. I mean, this one doesn't really fit in as much, but these three, they just look so great together, and I love these tiny hardbacks. I don't always love reading from hardbacks, but when they're small like this and they're nice and thin, I feel like it's such an enjoyable reading experience. Anyway, love Claire Keegan so much, and that is the final author that I have to tell you about. I don't know if I'm going to add this to the pile. Oh gosh, let's see. I hope this doesn't fall over. Anyway, here they all are. I don't think you can even see Claire Keegan up there. These are all of the authors that I wanted to tell you about that I will always read new books from, that I will always reread, and that I just love so much and I think you should read. So if you have read any of these, again, please let me know. I hope you enjoyed this video and you got some recommendations that sound interesting to you. And again, I would love for you to recommend me your top 5 favorite modern authors that are still releasing books today that you will always buy their new release. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you very soon in another video. And as always, happy reading.